Okay, so it's 8:30 p.m. and here we are already in week 4, Introduction to Corrections. And like I said before, the quarter goes pretty fast, and that we are at the point where we've got just 3 more lectures, week 6, week 8, and week 10, and then we've got only 7 more weeks and the course will be over. So that's basically 7 weeks, 1 month, and 3 weeks. So it will be over. So it would behoove you to make sure that you are catching up on everything. So let's get started. Go right into what we're going to be talking about today. And here we are, looking at a familiar screen to you. And the screen, of course, reminds you that this Thursday, which is tomorrow, from 5 a.m. Central or 6 a.m. Eastern to 8 a.m. Central to 9 a.m. Eastern, you will not have access to your courses. Of course, many of you aren't up, except those who work late nights. So you'll discover that you won't have access to that. Remind you again to take a look at my little information, instructor information, my phone number. You can call, text, or either you can email me at my email address. You have both my email addresses, and any hour of the day except the 25th hour. So it behooves you to be able to reach out to me anytime you need to. I also want to remind you that you are required to conduct research for all papers, and that means the sole source of your papers cannot be the textbook. You will lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. So it's very important that when you write your papers that you do conduct some research, because you will lose 2 points. And that's in addition to what's in the rubric as well that I submitted. All written assignments should be in APA format, and that means citations in the body and reference at the end. You'll lose 5 points right off the bat, and you don't want to have that to happen. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. As every week, I remind you to take a look at your weekly announcements. Your weekly announcement for week 4, jails and prisons we're talking about today. And then sections 3 and 6 of your textbook, and complete the activity prison versus jail, and an interview regarding jail issues today, and a look inside a maximum security prison. We're going to go over that tonight. And then be sure to participate in a discussion, which last night your initial post was due, issues facing jails. Many of you have, and I've responded to many of you already. And then there's a reply post due by Saturday on issues facing jails. I encourage you to reply to as many posts as possible, but a minimum of 1 that you have to reply to count your initial post. Very important, you know the rules as far as your post. I submitted to you a scoring rubric, but I also remind you to make sure that your discussion posts are detailed, not just one-liners, not very brief things, not just congratulating or thanking the student about the post or saying how much you like it, but also elaborate on it as well. And then finally, you have the written assignment, your state prison classification. And you want to make sure that you do that. I've already started grading some of these, and we'll grade some tonight after I'm off again. Course project, agency overview and background. Now, for some of you who have had trouble doing week 2's assignment, you got to make sure that you keep up, because of the fact that you're going to fall further and further and further behind. Oh, by the way, I won't be grading these assignments tonight. I'll be grading week 3's assignments. Of course, these assignments are not due until Sunday, this Sunday coming up, as will be shown to you by the calendar. Also, I want to remind you, take time if you could. I'd appreciate it if you could complete the mid-quarter student survey that you have, and want to make sure that you submit that, because I take a look at that. I've had some students who oftentimes on the student surveys complain about the course content, and I explain many times that I don't control that, but you can still make comments. The school will see it. But you should be aware that most of these classes, if not all, have been covered pretty much in detail to qualify you with qualitative and quantitative details to help you to perform well in this area in corrections. And by the way, as long as I'm talking about corrections, your course project should be on corrections. It tells you in week 1, jails, prisons, probation, or parole, one or the other that relates to that. Not a police station or anything like that. There's a couple students, police agencies. No, we want to deal with this because you're dealing with corrections. And remember, you're dealing now at the point with individuals who have either pled guilty or been found guilty. So that's where we are now, right? And then I want to remind you of my motto: adversity is a springboard to success. Start strong and finish strong. You will run into some adversity or problems. I hear from you all the time about it. I work with many of you on those. But if you have a problem and I don't know about it, shame on you because of what I told you about reaching out to me. I'm one of the most accessible professors of any in the program or any of the school because of my open policy that I have. And sometimes students say, oh, I didn't want to bother you. Well, I recommend you go ahead and take me up on it, because I will respond to you pretty fast. I have had students who hadn't even quite got their thought out. Oh, they're sending a second email, and I'm already answering the first one. But that's just how I am, because I don't like my box filled up. So let's take a look at the course calendar here. Course calendar shows you where we are right now. This is the week of the 23rd. So your reading assignment, I already went over that. Your initial post was due yesterday on the 24th. It is now tonight. We're going to go this lecture roughly 45 minutes to an hour. It may not even be that long. Reply post on Saturday. And then your mid-quarter survey, excuse me, we encourage you to do that. You're not graded for that, but it is helpful to us with the program. And then your written assignment, I already told you that, and then your course project agency. We're gonna talk about that a little bit more in detail in just a few minutes. So let's look at where we are here. Module 4. Here we go. And let's look at the assignments first, again. Now, notice where we are here with the course project. And you now already have selected your agency, your contact person. You've given me the details on that information. And so anyway, this lays out the steps that you're going to operate on. Now you see why I said it's important that your papers be on jail, prison, probation, and parole, because that's the way it's laid out. Yes, you have to remember, what is the name of this class? Is this a law enforcement class? No, it is not. It is a corrections course. and it's an intro to corrections. And many of you, that's the path you're going through. And then some of you are going to parole, probation, and so forth. And some of you will work in jail, which is like a short-term holding, and then prison is where you have extended term. So anyway, you're going to go over the details, and you're going to cover each of these. This assignment, it says, provides an opportunity to demonstrate your digital fluency and ethics and professional responsibility transferable skills. Remember, we talked about those the very first week during the lecture that was the open house. And so you're going to need to, as it says, access a website to conduct the research on your agency. Mission statements of the agency reiterate the ethical and professional responsibilities needed to be successful in the field. I want to know these things. Other details for your select overview are depending on which one you do. So if you did jails, you're going to, state whether it's a county or regional, and you're going to hit all these bullet points there as well. The same thing here applies to the prison, and then if it's parole and probation, you're going to also hit those points. The bottom line is we want you to be able to learn what specifically is out there, and then also be aware of the fact that a lot of times students will go and work in the areas where they're already located, and some students have actually started working in some of these positions and learned some additional things that help with promotion in those instances. So this is what is done. So make sure that you satisfy the requirements. I did give you a rubric for this, and I told you what I'm expecting in this week 4. So you should have that. I gave that to you earlier in the quarter. If you don't have it, can't find it, let me know. But you should have it. I told you to save that at the very beginning. And then your written assignment, your state prison classification, research the corrections in your state, identify the number and types of prisons utilized in your state, provide a brief overview of how each classification, how inmates are assigned, make sure that you do the APA format because you will be graded on that. I already gave you the rubric for that. And then make sure you have your papers run through Grammarly. Very important, otherwise you're going to get a Grammarly hit. Some of you know what I'm talking about, and you don't want to have that because you'll lose. Let's say, for example, if your paper is 50% on the Grammarly hit, you're going to lose half the points, which are necessary for getting a good grade. Okay, I think it's 25%, 25 points, I think. And then finally, your discussion posts that we've discussed already. So you want to make sure that you get those done accordingly. So now let's go back to the actual lesson content. And since we're talking about jails and prisons, you're going to learn about jails, what they are, learn about the bail process, pretrial release, preventive detention, describe a traditional jail, its problems, and the resulting new generation of jails. You might touch on, if you want to, some privatizing issues, which doesn't happen so much in jails. It happens more with prisons. So you run across that, but that's part of this module as well. Outline legal and administrative issues of confinement. Summarize the main types of correction institutions, prisons, and the demographics and makeup of who's sent there. Explain jurisdiction over prisons from the federal, state, and private administrative perspectives as well. That's what I was talking about, privatizing. And then identify issues related to privatization. Very important issue. There's a whole lot of debate. And then in your reading also, there's some information about that as well. So your corrections textbook. I told you what sections. We're going to go over prison versus jail in a minute. Interview with regarding jail issues and look inside a maximum security prison. And then I've already discussed your project and your written assignment and your discussion, and then reminded you to take the survey. So let's get into the issue of jails versus prison. Now, a lot of times people, it says, use these terms interchangeably, but they're really two different kinds of incarceration. You'll discover just right off the bat before reading all of this stuff that jails are short-term confinement. If a person, for example, is arrested and before they go to trial, they traditionally, if they're not able to make bail, will be kept in a jail, not a prison. And they're there until the trial takes place. And oftentimes, if the sentence is a misdemeanor, then, and it's for less than a year, they will remain there and be committed there. It says that anyone taken to jail is typically processed through well, this actually goes for both of them. Booking, the admission process that involves ID and you're fingerprinted, your mug shot is taken, and all of that kind of stuff. And then some, offenses, you have bond hearings right away, while others, more severe felony offenses, require an initial appearance before a judge to establish release for bail, or what we call a ROR, released on own recognizance, often referred to as an I bond, not EYE, but the letter I bond. And so, but it's based on the recognition that your offense is probably not very serious, you're not a threat to the community, you're not a flight risk, and that you're likely to appear in court. So you can oftentimes get an I bond. And then sometimes what they'll do, they'll give you an I bond with conditions. For example, that you might have to, of course it depends, on wearing a one of those ankle bracelets and things, electronic monitoring device. And so whether or not the court establishes bail, which, by the way, you should be aware, and I've already discussed this in a couple other classes, that bail is not guaranteed. It is not required under the Constitution. What is reasonable bail. Reasonable bail, and the purpose for bail is to assure that you're going to appear primarily. And so it's based upon the crime, and then no bail can be granted in situations where you are a threat to the community. If you're a member of organized crime or suspected member of organized crime or a known member of organized crime, then there is a good chance that bail will not be given. Okay, so most contemporary jails are located in the community, and they're really pretty close to the courthouses usually, and the sheriff of that county or jurisdiction is the one who's over those jails. In Will County, for example, where I'm at in Illinois, you have the sheriff, and the same thing over in Cook County, where I'm from, the largest county. You have also a sheriff as well, who's elected. The jail populations, as we already know, continue to evolve, and a lot of attention is paid to the age of individuals. You have a lot of juvenile offenders. Now, juvenile offenders are generally, they try to put them in youth detention facilities, but there are times when juvenile offenders end up in the regular adult jails. Many of us are opposed to that because while they are awaiting trial sometimes, they're exposed to people who are recidivists or repeat offenders who've been in, and they begin to learn habits that will create recidivism or repeating, and also will take them to the next level so they become hardened criminals, and oftentimes when they become adults, you still see them in the system. And then there are females. Of course, you should know that female prisons and jails have different issues than males. And then there also are some issues with individuals who are incarcerated who have some mental concerns, people who are actually often placed, unfortunately, in the general population because most of the jails don't have separate divisions for mental health. And if they are, they fill up, and then they end up having to put those other people in the general population. And unfortunately, what happens is that those individuals become like little fish to sharks, and like a guppy, and they're gobbled up pretty fast. They're abused, they're raped, they have their items taken away from them. They're forced into sexual acts that they would not take part in, and it's really an adverse thing for those individuals. It's bad for them, and they could be so abused that they come out, that the harm that they do, they come out and maybe find themselves becoming violent offenders. And then we've talked about this week, and I noticed in some of your discussion posts that jails have been impacted by budget cuts. Oh boy, don't let me get started talking about budget cuts. Our state of Illinois has not had a budget in a year or two at least, over a year. And so there are all kinds of problems that funding that takes place. So there are issues where there's overcrowding, there's a freeze on hiring staffers, they're not providing the services through psychiatrists, psychologists, and other things that are needed to help to rehabilitate individuals. And then, of course, if they're held just and nothing takes place, they come out, they're very angry. So there's no new direction. So when they come out, they not only are, they were criminals when they went in, now they're hardened criminals. Many jails have also reached the privatizing aspect of service, including the medical and mental health, food service programs, and even the facilities themselves and how they're built. And one of the problems with jails and prisons being privatized, of course, is that there are problems with the staffing there. Oftentimes, there are problems also, and this is an issue that we've had some discussions in some other classes I've taught on corrections that I've had, is that the entity that enters into the contract with the agency to operate the prison or the jail itself find themselves in situations where there's a quota or a certain number of individuals that seem to end up there, and if not, there is a violation of the contract and those kinds of things. And so money is made by the government, but a whole lot of money is made by the organizations that privatize them. But again, like I said, they don't provide the best medical and mental health care and those kinds of things. Small jails lack not only financial resources, but space and staff. They rely on volunteers. There's some volunteers now, you can imagine that. Now, there are some problems. You know, people who also are working in these positions, correction officers, or some people use the term jail guard, but that's really not used very often now. It's correction officers are used in both the jails and in prisons. Well, with the problems financially, and the budgets and things, you attract people and you don't pay them well enough. So what ends up happening is that there are some ethical considerations that are violated by those particular individuals working in that capacity to supplement their income, such as smuggling drugs in, such as doing favors that they shouldn't be doing, compromising the security of the prison, and those kinds of things. And then it says they are required to provide religious services. Being a pastor and a minister at one time and one point, participated in some of those kinds of things, but I had an issue that they had to remind those inmates that I was there in the capacity as for religious services, because I was also a criminal defense lawyer. And when they found it out, they'd know it, and they couldn't ask questions pertaining to that, and I wouldn't answer them. Exercise equipment, access to a law library. Individuals incarcerated need to have a right, and boy, I can tell you, as a defense lawyer, there were many times when I had individuals who were incarcerated or in jail waiting for their trial, and they would write little motions or present to me legal principles that they oftentimes got from someone who has been in jail many times or several times, and they would tell them these things would work. And so I would say to them, where'd you get your information? They say, well, my cellie gave it to me. I says, well, don't you think if your cellie, if this worked, they would use it for themselves first and they wouldn't be your cellies? I never looked at it like that. Yeah, I hear you. But we try to explain to them that you're paying for an attorney, or you're appointed an attorney by the county or the jurisdiction in the form of a public defender or some kind of defender paid by the government. The point of the matter is that we are trained as lawyers, so we know the law, but those who are behind the bars, obviously, they don't know the law or either don't have a regard for the law. The point of the matter is that your information is suspect and the source is not very credible. So anyway, it says many also provide GED and basic education programs. I am a advocate of education for individuals who get into the criminal justice system. For example, when I was practicing law, there was a judge who in Cook County, his name was R. Eugene Pencham. He and his probation officer in his courtroom came up with this concept called probation challenge. And probation challenge still exists today. And then I was on the board later on of the organization that came out of starting this process. And here's the way it worked. It worked that if you were an individual who came before the judge and you qualified for probation and you had not obtained your high school diploma or GED, well, one of the conditions that you could receive, you could get bail, and you would oftentimes get an I-bond, but you would also be given the opportunity to go and get training and get your GED. If you were successful in obtaining your GED, then you found yourself coming back before the judge, and the charges were dismissed. And then often what happened with many of those individuals, we followed them. We partnered with a junior college, the City Colleges of Chicago, the Olive Harvey branch in Chicago in the South Side, And many of the students, they were so excited about getting the GED, and then they began to spend time continuing their education, though they weren't required, because they had a taste of it, something different from what they had, that had they had it before, they may not have ended up in that position. But at any rate, the point of the matter is that those individuals went on, and many of them got their associates, and then some went on and were admitted later on to other four-year institutions, and they were able to get their bachelor's degrees and other things that happened, and went a whole new direction. The recidivism rate for those individuals who went through and got education and or a GED and or some additional adult-based education programs decreased. So they weren't thinking in terms of that, because now they're using their knowledge, their education, and their skills to do good things and become contributors to society. And I've also said it's cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. Cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. Judge Pencham used to have this idea that a lot of the agencies didn't want to educate, because what would happen is that the individuals that flow through the system are usually generational or either recidivists. In other words, their family members after them, they teach them crime. Anyway, it would eventually diminish or cut down the flow. That would result in the need of less correction officers, less probation officers, and other type, maybe even judges, and even possibly criminal defense lawyers, which was fine with me. But the fact of the matter is that he had some points there. He had some points there. Drug and alcohol treatment programs, it goes without saying that many crimes that take place that lead individuals into jail and then ultimately to prison are tied to the fact that they're addicted to drugs. Not necessarily just selling them, but they could be selling them and addicted. That's a dangerous combination, though. But you'll be surprised. Their drug and alcohol treatment programs are essential to freeing them. It's an illness. It's a sickness. And you need to be treated for that, just like you're treated for the cold or flu or for any other illness. So jails have problems providing some of those, especially the small ones. Work release. Work release is where individuals find themselves in an alternative form of sentencing, where they stay, they go to jail, they report back, and they go to work. And there are second chance programs that are existing, which give these individuals an opportunity to work. And you'll find that many of them as well will go in a new direction. Now, somebody says, well, I know some people that there's always exceptions to the rule, but the point of the matter is at least attempt to say, oh, no, these programs are not going to work. Why are you saying that? Let them try it first and see what happens. And then, you got the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and vocational programs where people are taught how to work on vehicles, all kinds of skills that will help them provide income, because that's another thing that the economics in a particular community will create increased crime, because people need to eat. People need a place to stay. And so their vocation becomes things like selling drugs and things of that nature to live. I heard a young man one time say that he made more money selling drugs and crack than working at McDonald's. And I said to him, well, which one is more dangerous? And he said, well, they both have dangers. I said, no, be real, serious with me. And he had to admit that selling drugs, because I said, yeah, you can have somebody else who wants that territory, and they will kill you and stuff like that. So anyway, there are many serious issues facing jails today. The most common includes crowding. We've talked about that. There's violence in jails themselves, and actually they're akin to the overcrowding. Also in violent situations, you have the various factions of gangs who get into it in jails. There are some attempts to try to segregate those gangs, but doesn't really succeed very well. And things happen, and individuals in there are able to take common items and make what we call shanks or knives or something to cut people with. You'd be surprised that, and there's many riots that take place. Now there's even more. We probably see one every so many months in Cook County at the jail. Mental health placements, we talked about. Direct supervision of inmates is increasingly more common as required inspections and improve quality of life for the inmates. There is a organization called John Howard Association. And the John Howard Association is a watchdog group that watches over facilities like prisons and jails to make sure that there is humane treatment, that, you know, the beds. It's already demeaning to be in a cell and you got the toilet right in there, and then you have to eat in there as well. It's not a good thing. And then you have people stacked up on each other as well, and then they're held in for so many hours and then released for so many hours out to be in the general population. So it is a problem. It is a problem and not very healthy. Prisons now are as a more serious offenses or for a longer period of time involve commitment of at least a year and a day. Prisoners today are almost 90% state versus federal inmates. It's said that there are some prisons that are federal. They call those country clubs. And those people have all kinds. They have VCRs. They have carpeting in their particular cells. They have all kinds of amenities, almost like a condominium and or some kind of group area there where they go. But the violent offenders go to most of the state places. Anyway, predominantly male, 90% sentenced for violent offenses, and 50% involve racial and ethnic differences. There are battles between various factions, from the Hispanics to the blacks to now you got the Muslims and, you know, so forth, and then other ethnic groups as well involved. So here we have, and we come to what we call the FOP, or the BOP rather, the Bureau of Prisons. It's a federal agency that sets the standards, almost like I said, John Howard is private, but sets correctional facilities. In addition to federally run prisons, they involve in the custody and care of offenders who are confined through agreements with state and local governments, and now even privately operated correctional facilities. So in addition, the BOP, there are 50 separate state departments of corrections, as well as DC, and all are concerned with the cost effectiveness, recidivism, and institutional operations. So there are some problems, and the following is based on the classification: minimum security. This is where dorm living and more relaxed parameter security, freedom to attend school and work. You will actually find that those places, they don't have the big walls they have maybe some barbed wire fences, and some just have the metal fences. The medium security, double fencing with guards with towers. You've seen those in movies and places like that where they can see what's happening down below. And then the maximum. These are the real bad folk. They look like the old prisons that you see in some of the movies, surrounded by stone walls, cell observations, and then toilet and sink in the cell. That's what I was talking about a few minutes ago. Double fence watchtowers with armed guards and restricted movement within the cell block or the pod. Then there's a supermax, where you are out over 1 hour, 23 hours of lockdown. There's video cameras, cement walls, no communication with each other, security, housing users. It's really where you got some really long-term bad people. Prison designs, a radio, telephone pole, courtyard, campus, vary according to the classifications as well. And the wardens are responsible for everything that takes place. The associate wardens help with things that are necessary and so forth and so on. So anyway, that's the deal on jails and prisons. So now, let's take a few minutes, and I'm going to allow you to see this interview, which involves jail issues today. And I think you'll find this pretty interesting. It's almost 9.5 minutes, so let's take a look at that.
Tell me about your background and your position here in Sherburne County.
Sure. Well, I worked at the Sherburne County Jail for the past 18 years, and over the past 18 years, I've held the capacity of a corrections officer, of a jail sergeant, the jail captain, and currently I'm the assistant jail administrator.
Okay. And your background?
Before that, I worked for Cup Foods. I was assistant produce manager. I was going to St. Cloud State University when I was the assistant produce manager. And then I had an opportunity to apply for Sherburne County, which I did, and I was accepted. Before that, I was in the Marine Corps Reserve. I'm a veteran for the first Gulf War, which I learned a lot of things, and it was an experience that I'll never forget, and gained a lot of experience out of that. For that, I was at St. Cloud State University. So I went from St. Cloud State University. I joined the Marine Corps Reserve. I didn't graduate at that point, and ended up getting activated for the Gulf War. And when the Gulf War was done, came back and went back to school and worked at Cup Foods.
Okay. Can you tell us about the setup of your jail and the types of inmates you serve?
Yes, our jail is actually, it's kind of a unique jail. We hold federal inmates, so we have a contract with the U.S. Marshal Service and Immigration to hold federal inmates. Most of the inmates that we have are federal inmates. On any given day, we have about 80 to 100 county inmates. The rest of our inmate population are federal. We
Well, I think there that you picked up some pretty good points there. I've heard this before in other classes, the firm, fair, and consistent. And I mean, that makes sense because what you're doing is you're not showing favoritism. You are letting people build up expectations about how they will be treated and the things that they can and cannot do as well. But I've heard in another class that I taught, we had a nice video from a female ward, and she talked about the very same thing: firm, fair, and consistent. And then one of the other things that I have shared with my students oftentimes is communication. Communication is critical. You need to be able to communicate well with your teammates, as well as being able to communicate well with inmates themselves in a respectful fashion. Now, I tell correction officers the same thing I tell law enforcement, police officers: try to refrain from profanity. Profanity is an escalating type of thing, and you can create bigger problems by doing that. And of course, you have to, of course, elevate your voice and your tone and stuff like that. You have to do what we call vocal judo, being able to control the situation, but refrain from using those offensive words. And whatever you do, don't racially refer to people in a negative fashion. That's a no-no. That will get you fired and severely disciplined as well. The point of the matter is you got to remember these people are not going anywhere for a period of time, and as long as they're there, and it's because it's already so many, it's too many for the little small space. Scientifically, if you do study any psychology, individuals where you live in projects or in these buildings where there's more people that should be in the building, or the capacity is exceeded, then that's when you're going to have problems. So you got to remember these people are in that kind of a crisis situation, and while you can leave there after you finish your work hours, they can't. They're there, and that they sleep, eat, and live the whole thing. And you heard different ways that they approach things in terms of how they release people out. And so, and then finally, the other point that I keep espousing is, you notice what he said, and when I asked the question about the minimum requirements, he mentioned driver's license, and he mentioned the fact that you got a high school diploma. Well, if you paid attention to what he said, he says those are the minimum, but they're not looking for that anymore. They are looking now for people who have associates and bachelor's degrees. The more educated people are more professional. And unfortunately, some of the money that's paid at the beginning is not the best. However, the point of the matter is you determine what you want to do in terms of, career-wise. And so the key thing, though, is continue to get their education out. Yeah, associates, you can get a job, but you want to climb higher. And I had a student that she works now currently for the Illinois Department of Corrections, commonly referred to as IDOC, in one of our facilities near us, Stateville. And she was a student of mine, and she elevated herself. She worked many years there, over 10 years. She graduated from Rasmussen College with her associate's degree. She was with honors. She was in several of my classes, and very, very, very outgoing. And so she continued to get her education, and then she went on and finished and got her bachelor's degree. And then she got promoted to major. So now she's got a nice increase. She got a better position, and is climbing up the ladder because of her education. And so she demonstrates what I was talking about a few minutes ago. Get your education, and education is key, and that's what you guys are doing right now here. Okay, so that's an interview there. So let's go to with the last part. See, I don't know. Let me see if I can get this. To see. Let me click on this. Maybe this will do it. Virtual tour of a maximum security prison. Let me see. I want to, because I want to get this to you. Let's try. Let's try to go back to the classroom for a minute. Okay, let's go back to the classroom. Then while I'm doing this, I'm going to try to see if I can put up another module here. Hold on a second. Let's see. Give me a minute. I'm trying to log in with another browser and see if I can get that for you. Here we go. Let's log in here. Okay. Okay, let's try this. And log in. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Let's see if this allows me to log in. There we go. Okay, now I'm in. Let me go and see if I can. Okay. I don't know why it's not letting me get to my courses on here. Okay, let's try this again. Maybe I can load it up. Oh, I don't see it there. So let me try it. Let me try doing it. Let me try doing it this way. Try doing it this way. Let me try this. I don't know if I'm going to lose it or not. Okay. Let's go back again. Here we go. Okay, now let's try it. Okay, I think. Okay. Now let's see if we can log in now. And then I'll share it. You can't see right now what I'm looking at, but I'm trying to get up to that point. Okay, let's go to lesson content. And okay, so now I'm going to go back to the class, and I want to share the screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. a virtual tour of a maximum security prison, Minnesota Correctional Facility in Minnesota. And so let's see. Let's take a look and see if we can see this video. Okay, good. Here we go.
Oswald and his team even open the cell door until the prisoner hooked on a spit basket and the padded home. He tuned his wrists.
These guys like to headbutt, stab. That's one of their good weapons. So that's more precautionary thing. That's 2018.
They wrap a thick chain around his waist, connecting to shackles on his ankles and wrists. The heavy restraint system reduces the inmate's movement and ability to attack. But that doesn't mean he won't try. Oswald and the officers keep one hand and both eyes on him at all times.
It's tough to work back in the SEG and the AC department. You got to be pretty firm back there because these inmates are the inmates that have gotten in trouble in other places. So they might be mad at you. You know, they want to cause some problems.
The ACU removes their tools for violence. The cells are 120 empty square feet of concrete and cold steel.
Here's their shower, and everything's fine. They can take one shower every 12 hours. They can flush their toilet twice in an hour. They can get as much water from the sink if they want.
The toilet, sink, mirror, and outlets lock into heavy metal anchors so that they can't be ripped out.
Anything they can rip off they would use as a weapon, you know, and that is why there is no toilet seat.
The cells also strip the inmate of all physical interaction, even sound.
These guys are locked up 23 hours a day, and they get an hour exercise. But you can figure that after a year, 2 years, 3 years, being locked up, start to lose it, you know. They're not seeing anyone. There's no human contact. So they just kind of start going crazy.
Well, that's an idea of what a lockdown inside a maximum security prison is like, and you know it's pretty tough there, pretty tough. Okay, let's stop sharing and go back to the classroom. So that's what I have for today, and I hope that those of you who have a chance to look at this archive will be able to pick up some things that will benefit you and help you in addition to the readings that you did in completing your assignments. I will hope to see so many of you. I have 2 sections of this, and no one showed up today, but that happens sometimes. So I encourage you to try to come to the live lectures. So I'm going to say good night, and I will be sending out this archive.